Well, we were expecting to talk to my next guest about Ukraine and NATO, but as you can imagine, events in Syria have overtaken that this morning. But I can now speak to the Foreign Minister of Lithuania, Gabrielius Landsbergis. Now, your reaction to what's happened overnight in Syria?
Well, it wasn't a surprise for this night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course. Watching how fast the opposition groups have moved during the last couple of days, it was rather clear that the regime might fall. How, when exactly, I mean, that has remained a mystery, but it's not a very big mystery, honestly. It was clear that there is a downfall incoming. And, looking at the wider geopolitical picture, also it was rather clear that there is a vacuum. There's a paradigm in geopolitics that no vacuum remains
unfilled.
Yeah, exactly. So, Russians are busy fighting the war in Ukraine. Israel, attacking terrorist groups also, increased that vacuum, and the opportunity was used by the opposition rebel forces that threw out Assad's regime. So, I mean, in theory, it all sounds logical. The only question remains: so what to make of it? And what is the path going forward?
So actually, that's interesting. So essentially, you think that number one, the Israelis' weakening of Hezbollah and so on open the door. The Russians' preoccupation with Ukraine had left Assad essentially to the mercies of his own people, and this is the result. The Pentagon is saying this morning that it worries now that ISIS may walk through that door as well.
There is such possibility, clearly, but I have a sense that there are regional actors that are gaining momentum as well. So one of them is Israel, clearly creating for itself way larger operational space than it has had in the past. I would assume that they will be keeping check on what is happening in their neighborhood, so that it doesn't change their security situation. And also one additional regional player that has been growing muscle for quite a while is Turkey. I think that we cannot be sure, obviously, about their involvement, direct or indirect.
Though it was striking that Mr. Erdogan, their president, was the first leader out there saying everything's changed.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that they're also seeing the map and how does it play for their advantage. We have sensed that Turkey has an interest to be seen as a real regional partner that it would stretch its influence to Northern Africa, obviously Middle East, even to the Gulf and Caucasus countries. So I think that there is, we are at the point of seeing a little bit of that, I think.
As a NATO foreign minister, of course, your principal preoccupation recently has, of course, been the situation in Ukraine. Now, Mr. Zelensky told Sky News last week that he was open to negotiations with the Kremlin, provided he had security guarantees from NATO. In your view, is that a realistic prospect?
Security guarantees?
Yes.
Well, I would. My point is that I don't see any other way. Honestly, at this stage, there are certain preconditions that would need to be met in order, if Western allies supporting Ukraine believe that there is a way out of the war. So one is putting Ukraine in the strongest possible position, which it currently isn't, and securing Ukraine's future, so to say. And that for that to happen, you need to say to Ukrainian people, to Ukrainian businesses and politicians that, look, we have your back. You won't be attacked the way that you have been in 2014, in 2022. So there is no third act.
You've just come back from a NATO foreign ministers meeting, I think. Is there appetite for that amongst other NATO countries?
I would say that there's an illusion that there's a way to secure peace and don't have these options on the table. And my goal when I go to meetings like the one that I had in Brussels, is to use the momentum and shatter those illusions to the best of my ability.
Oh, you think some of your colleagues are being a bit unrealistic and maybe naive?
Yeah, I think so. Because we have a very short historic memory. right? You know, we're walking in exactly the same situation as we have been with Minsk I and Minsk II agreements after the 2014 aggression. And now somehow we think that this time is different. It's not. Russia is the same. It actually, you know, with Syrian news, it clearly shows that it can be beaten. It can be thrown out if we put our, foot on the pedal. That is clear to me. So going back, to 2014, repeating exactly the same mistakes that we have done in the past would set us for a new Russian aggression, maybe in Ukraine, maybe somewhere else. So I think that now it's not just about Ukraine, and I want to stress this, and Syria clearly shows this. It's about how do we limit Russia's operational space in the wider region. We're seeing what's happening in Georgia. It's a country that is actually on a crossroad, choosing between Russia and Europe, the Western Alliance or Russian Empire. So we have ability now to stop Russia's influence in Georgia, in Moldova, in Romania, which is a EU and NATO ally, right? Fighting off.
What did for example, the Italians and the Germans say when you put this view forward?
Well, 3 years ago, when the war broke out, there was a saying, we should have listened to the Baltics, right? That was a short-lived advice.
I see, okay. They were a bit skeptical. In your mind then, what would such security guarantees for Zelensky or for Ukraine look like?
Look, when I'm talking about security guarantees, the only ones that I know that work are Article 5. Article 5 secured Europe's peace.
If you aggress this country, then you aggress us all.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because
all for one for all for one.
Because it's about the continent. We are unable to have an insecure Ukraine and secure Poland or Lithuania. So we're connected already, right? So, it just makes sense. Theoretically, one could say, okay, so how do you actually practically ensure that Article 5 works, right? So that Putin is not tempted to test it and break NATO. I would say that, in some sort of future, we have to start thinking about the defense plans of Ukraine, the NATO defense plans of Ukraine, maybe stationing, tripwire troops in Ukraine, such as, like we had in Lithuania or Poland, where we had a German battalion and then now brigade. So that has to happen. That we have to start thinking about these things in Ukraine.
Briefly, this is your last week in office. Is Europe a more dangerous place now than when you started?
It is, unfortunately. It is. We show that we have an ability to get our act together. We have strength, but we're not fully there yet.
Mr. Landsbergis, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.